Matthew and Julie, I want you to remember today's date. Okay? I want you to remember January 12th, 2020. All right. I want you to remember the day your son was adopted as a child of God and truly becomes not only a member of this parish, a member of the church, truly becomes a child of God. The day is important. Now, John Ricketts has to, unfortunately, bear with me again because he was at St. Paul's last night, so he's already heard this sermon, and he knows how limited it's going to be. Did you, by the way, cheat and look for yourself?
I gave Sharon a little heads up.
Okay. And of course, there's a spousal privilege, so I can't exactly ask Sharon what she said because you have no right to answer, nor do I have any right to ask. And I'll just shut up at that. But how many of you remember the date of your baptism? Raise your hands. Not the date of your birth, the date of your baptism. Higher. Higher, Claudia. When were you baptized? What was the date?
March 31st,
Of?
1958.
Okay. All right. I was already out of the Army at that point, so I mean, you know, you're still very, very young. Go back home and don't look at your birth certificate. That's not the issue. Find your baptismal certificate. Find the day you were baptized. And remember and treasure that day. I had a professor who once said, you know, on the Sunday when we celebrate the Lord's baptism, you can go one of several directions. And I can promise you this is what's going on in churches today. If they don't have a baptism, they're not blessed. Number one, the clergy is going to get up there and is going to deal with the whole issue of why did Jesus fight about being baptized by John. Is a whole exegetical argument I could do. I could bore you to tears with it and it could go on for 3 hours. I'm not going to do that. Number two, I could talk about why baptism is important theoretically, or number three, I could just share with you a thought of why this day is important. It's important for you, that little boy of yours. It's important for all of us. We are Christians because of that moment where we are washed clear in the waters of baptism. We become a member of Christ's body, the church. We become a member of Jesus Christ himself. We become God's servants, and we become a child of God. And there's a great play on words. Here I will show off, okay? In the language that Matthew spoke and wrote, which was Greek, there's a word that he uses. And the word we translate into English as child, or we translate it as slave. It's the same word. It can be translated either way. P-A-I-S. Child or servant. Jesus hears from the heavens, "This is my beloved son, my child, in whom I am well pleased." Or, "This is my beloved servant." It's not either or. In his case, absolutely it is both. And for us who are baptized into Christ, it's both. You want a definition of what it means to be a Christian? It means to walk on a journey towards God with Christ as your guide and light. Every time we celebrate baptism, we light the Easter candle and we remind ourselves of the fact that with Christ and through Christ, we are promised eternal life. So this is about not only little Christopher being born and baptized, it's a reminder that he's being reborn into life eternal. Every time I celebrate resurrection, whether it's a funeral or it's on Easter Sunday or at a baptism, very personal for me. This means nothing to you, but it is something personal. Notice the vestment I'm wearing. This was a gift given to me by the other lawyers in the firm that I worked before I became a priest. And in the back it says, in memory of Ann Thomas. Ann Thomas was the wife of one of our partners. Ann Thomas was one of the most beautiful, and I mean this spiritually, physically, emotionally, one of the finest human beings I had ever known, who fought breast cancer valiantly for 10 years. And after she passed, when it became known I was leaving the firm to become a priest, they gave me this and they said, every time you ever celebrate Eucharist and talk about eternal life, please wear this and remember Ann, which is what I'm doing today. But what it is about is the eternal life your son becomes a part of. He truly becomes child of God, washed in the blood of the Lamb, as we say in the Scriptures. And they're all over there now because I told them to be ready, so we're going to be joining. So remember January 20th. No, January 12th. What happens on January 20th is something, that's not the Super Bowl, is it? No. I don't have any money in it this year, so I don't care. All my teams got eliminated in August. But remember this day and how important it is. and what it means for the two of you who now become the spiritual teachers of this child. And for you godparents, remember how important it is for you. You establish a relationship with him forever. This is about life. This is about rebirth. This is about eternal life. Amen.
Amen.
On January 12th.